I'm work. All right, so why don't we go ahead and get started? This is a work session relating to AR 2024-92, a resolution approving the Heritage Land Bank 2024 Annual Work Plan, Work Program, and 2025 to 2029 5-year management plan. We'll start in the room with introductions, starting with Mr. Littlefield.
Mark Littlefield.
Karen Bronga.
Scott Myers.
Anna Brawley.
Miss Brawley is walking over, or excuse me, Mrs. Zalatil is walking over. Christopher Constant here on the phone, Mr. Johnson.
I'm here.
And on the phone, Mr. Martinez.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Thank you. We're also joined by our friends at the Heritage Land Bank and Lance Wilbur. So we'll go ahead and let you lead us off. I'm sure there'll be lots of questions.
Thank you, Chair Constant. Members of the Assembly, welcome back. We have today the 2024 Annual HLB Work Program. I would like to acknowledge the considerable amount of work that HLB staff puts into this, and also our HLB commissioners and members of the public when they're giving their comments. Emma is going to kick off the presentation. Thank you.
Hello, I am Emma Gibney. I'm the Land Management Officer for the Heritage Land Bank, and I'm here to present the 2024 Heritage Land Bank Work Plan, which is scheduled to be before the Assembly as AR 2024-92 for a public hearing and action at the April 23rd Assembly meeting. First, I'm going to give you a timeline of the drafting and approval process that has been completed so far. Then I will give a basic overview of what to expect in each chapter. Lastly, I'm going to present in more detail a few of our biggest accomplishments since our last work plan, as well as a few upcoming and continuing projects that may be of interest to the Assembly. Next slide, please. HLB began work on the 2024 work plan in October by holding a series of community and agency open houses to receive feedback and brainstorm ideas. In November, we gathered both the accomplishments from the previous year as well as potential future actions and drafted the first draft of the 2024 work plan. In December, we held a work session with the HLB Advisory Commission to receive preliminary feedback and discuss the potential actions for the coming years, as well as the policies and procedures section of the work plan. Later in December, we released a public review draft for public comment, sending it to other municipal departments, community councils, and our mailing list. We also gave the 45-day public hearing notice required by code. Over the course of the 45 days, we received a total of 28 submissions with over 100 individual comments or suggestions from other agencies, community councils, and members of the public. HLB staff summarized, separated, or distilled comments for substance before organizing them into a table and providing a response. In February, HLBAC held a public hearing and unanimously passed Resolution 2024-04 recommending Assembly approval of the 2024 work plan. In March, we submitted the work plan to the Assembly and presented it at the Community and Economic Development Committee. It was introduced at the March 19th Assembly meeting with a public hearing and action scheduled for April 23rd. Next slide, please. Oh, perfect. Okay, I wanted to briefly walk you through the format of the work plan and then highlight a few of the key accomplishments from the previous year and top priorities for the coming year. Chapter 1 provides an introduction to HLB. This is a great source of information on the history, objectives, and inventory of HLB. Chapter 2 goes through the accomplishments of 2023, including a list of resolutions approved by HLBAC, as well as a list of conservation easements that HLB manages. Chapter 3 lays out the potential projects, disposals, acquisitions, exchanges, and transfers that will be prioritized in the coming year. Chapter 4 is similar to the previous chapter, but with longer-term possibilities that are not as high of a priority. The remaining 57 pages of the work plan are appendices. This includes maps and our policies and procedures and the HLB fund history and projection. It also includes a full list of the permits and leases active in 2023. The most lengthy appendix is the table of responses to public comments. Last is the HLBAC resolution recommending approval of the work plan. Next, please. So I know I'm throwing a lot of
Hold on.
information. Oh,
We have a quick question for you.
Yeah, go ahead.
Can I ask, I want to ask a high level question.
Yeah, sure.
So I see in here like references to HLB resolutions. Do
Yeah.
you reference in here where you've done something responsive to a assembly pass resolution? Right. So we often pass resolutions that say we would love HLB to look at X, Y, or Z. So if you have an action item related to one of those prior resolutions, is it referenced by resolution in here? I haven't read it yet. I'm sorry, I haven't had a chance.
That's okay. One example I can think of is a couple years ago, or in 2023, is Assembly Resolution 2023-40, I believe. We were requested to do a feasibility study for developable parcels in Girdwood. And so, we've talked about this before. We came and did a presentation here. And then that is referenced in here. But as far as I can't think of an example where the assembly requested, we want make more parcels for McDonald's available or whatever, so it's like.
So you reference the resolution as you identified the actions that you have done under it. That's what I'm looking for, is the nexus between resolutions and the actions proposed in the work plan.
So in last year's work plan, the 2023 annual work program, because we had just done that feasibility study, we marked each of the parcels that were in that feasibility study and highlighted them as ones that the action related to that parcel was in relation to that feasibility analysis that was completed.
Okay, no, I think the answer is no. You don't reference assembly resolutions in here in terms of what might be driving some of your actions. Even though it might be, you don't reference it that way. Is that correct? Okay, that would be really helpful because, what I'm going to look for when I read this is any resolutions that we've passed saying, HLB, please do blah, blah, blah. And I think the only one is the one you're referencing that I co-sponsored with Suzanne LaFrance.
Sure.
Is I'm going to want to attach what's in your work plan back to those requests.
Okay.
So that's an important piece for me.
The only other thing I can think of is there are references to ordinances in here for disposals that have been passed already that we're still working on. So that's one reference.
I'll add an interesting way to think about it is if in the text you have a reference to a resolution that the assembly has adopted, when somebody goes to search it in the portal, that resolution number, this item will pop up as well as any other item that references that resolution. So then it will help to create over time a very complete searchable record for people when they want to understand what was asked and what was delivered.
So if I may, what I'm understanding is on Emma's list, it is the HLBAC resolutions. So we need to cross-reference that with the assembly actions.
I don't even know if it's so much the resolutions. Yes, the resolutions when they are in contemplation of an assembly resolution, but actions in the plan also that are in response to requests by the assembly that come formally to you, one by ordinance, other by resolution, reference it. Say in response to AR 2024-35, the following actions were accomplished. It's like similar to what you would do with your own board.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
So is that something you want us to incorporate for future plans?
Yeah, I don't say go backwards.
Okay, thank you.
All right, go ahead.
So next, I just want to highlight a couple of the projects that we accomplished in the last year, and then go over some of the ones that we're hoping to accomplish this year. So this year we finished selling the Girdwood Industrial Park Phase 1 lots to the current lessees, which are all small businesses in Girdwood. Another project in Girdwood that was completed in 2023 was the disposal of HLB parcel 6-043 to the U.S. Forest Service. This disposal was approved by the Assembly in early 2022, and we were excited to see this action be completed. It was a collaborative effort with the Forest Service with valuable intergovernmental cooperation. Recently, HLB also received Assembly authorization for the disposal of 60 acres for the Holton Hills project. phase 1 and 2 of which will be closing in the coming weeks, pending the plat finalization. Also in 2023, HLB acquired 8 lots in the Laurel Acres subdivision in southwest Anchorage near Minnesota and 100th Avenue. These parcels were acquired for a future conservation easement and wetland mitigation credits to allow potential future development in other areas. Check out pages 11 through 13 of the work plan for the rest of our 2023 achievements. As for the coming year, I have a few projects I want to highlight. First is the Girdwood Industrial Park again, also known as HLB parcel 6-057F. Like I mentioned a minute ago, the phase 1 lots were sold this past year, but the remainder of the tract is still in HLB inventory. This tract is one of the only areas zoned for industrial use in Girdwood, and it is a vital part of the local economy and a top priority for HLB in the coming year. While phase 1 was platted and improved several years ago, portions of phases 2 and 3 were only partially improved. Future plans for the industrial park began last year with community conversations with GBOS, industrial park permittees, internal agencies, and the HLB Advisory Commission. We are hoping to complete a feasibility study in the coming weeks to find a path forward that is affordable, achievable, and beneficial to the community. We will continue to discuss the project with HLBAC, GBOS, and the Assembly as the project moves forward. Another project in Girdwood that I'd like to highlight is the project we are working on with Girdwood Community Land Trust in the South Town site, HLB parcel 6-076. This project is strongly supported by the community and the Girdwood Board of Supervisors. HLB and GCLT entered into a letter of intent that will reserve this parcel for up to 2 years so that GCLT may conduct feasibility studies on housing and mixed-use development that meets the highest and best standards for municipal land development and follows Title 25 code requirements. Most recently, GCLT released a request for information to gather ideas from the community on development possibilities in the Girdwood South Town site. I would also like to highlight the multiple cemetery projects across the municipality. This includes both the Girdwood and Eagle River Cemetery projects, as well as the nonprofit cemetery project proposed by Alaska Natural Burial on HLB parcel 2-156 off of Golden View Drive in the Rabbit Creek area. These projects are all supported by their applicable community councils and local community. HLB anticipates bringing forward the disposal of 2-156 in the coming months. Many years ago, the municipality acquired the parcels on the southwest corner of Lake Otis and Tudor to expand the turning lane. These parcels, including a DEC contaminated site, have sat vacant since the road expansion project. In 2022, the Assembly authorized HLB to dispose of these parcels. In the next few months, HLB anticipates closing on a sale of these parcels to a private company who plans to work with DEC to close the contaminated site and redevelop the parcels into a car wash. Lastly, I want to take this opportunity to dive a little deeper into a project that has been years in the making and will be before the Assembly in the coming month. Next slide, please. At the April 23rd Assembly meeting, the Potter Marsh Watershed Park project will be introduced. This is a complex project involving the Heritage Land Bank and Real Estate Services Divisions, the Parks and Recreation Department, and our nonprofit partner, Great Land Trust. At the April 23rd meeting, 3 ordinances regarding this project will be on the agenda for introduction. The first is for the withdrawal and transfer of 100 acres of HLB land with management authority going to Parks and Recreation. The second ordinance is for the acquisition of the neighboring 200 acres using grant funding donated by Great Land Trust with management authority to Parks and Recreation. The final ordinance is regarding the dedication of a conservation easement to be held by Great Land Trust on all of the above-mentioned properties that will make up the Potter Marsh Watershed Park. In addition, an informational memorandum will be in the agenda explaining the project in more detail and how the different documents are related. I highly recommend you start with that document. We are excited to finally be introducing this project, which has the support of multiple federal, state, and municipal agencies, community councils, nonprofits, and recreation companies. This is just one project out of many that is included in the 2024 work plan. We invite you to review pages 14 through 19 of the work plan for a full list of our potential projects. Next slide, please. One last thing I would like to mention is our online resources that can be found on our website, muni.org/HLB. There you will find a link to our interactive maps, which can be incredibly helpful for locating and learning more information on specific HLB parcels. I'm happy to answer any questions you have now or in the coming days as you have a chance to further review the plan. Thank you.
All right, so on page 16, sadly, under 2024 potential projects, there's probably a deletion. It's the first one. Doesn't change the parcel use, but it certainly changes the narrative. The voters did not approve the bond. And so that language is out of date.
Yes, it's a complicated process when we approve or submit a plan
Right.
at any time of year. Originally, we didn't mention the bond in our draft, so during the HLBAC meeting, we actually amended to add the language about the bond into the plan. And then obviously now that is somewhat out of date.
I think it would benefit to add just some language that is updating it, that the voters didn't approve the bond and future work will continue or whatever that might be. But I mean, if we're going to adopt this, it probably should be factually up to date.
Okay.
And I just want folks to know that I have an amendment I'm coming forward with on this that will prioritize some work on the 3rd Avenue site, the old ANS site. And so for the intent of ensuring that the use that gets developed there is in compliance with the master plan that was developed, because there's a sales pitch going on right now for a project that doesn't substantially comply with the master plan. It's an alternative that is, in my opinion, a sad mimic of what had been proposed with all of that extensive work. So I haven't yet figured out exactly the nature of the amendment where I'll prioritize it, but that is one amendment that I'll be bringing forward. Other members have comments on the plan? Anna?
Yeah, I have a couple comments and then a couple questions. One, sorry, I lost my train of thought. I appreciate the detailed kind of responses to comments. I'll say that first of all. I guess I'll just go to my two questions. One is just on page, so this is comment number 108 on page 72, and I'm just referencing it so folks can go to it, but it's essentially the proposal that Miss Crystal Hogue had brought to us during the Holton Hills discussion. So I see that that was included, and I think I saw a couple of projects that you guys are pursuing are there, and I see there's notes, but maybe you could just verbally kind of give an update on that proposal, because she was basically had multiple proposals to take parts of HLB land and use them for community purposes. So just briefly.
Yes, I can respond to that. So specifically in her comment, which is distilled in our plan, the raw comments are available in the packet for the HLBAC meeting if anyone would like to see those. So I can go through each of these 6 parcels. The first one is 6-076, which is the parcel that I mentioned that we have a letter of intent with GCLT. And if you want, I can tell you where that is located in our work plan. That is going to be on page. Here, wait. There we go. The bottom of page 15, it says Girdwood Community Land Trust has submitted an application requesting a short-term land use permit for site development work and a long-term ground lease request. A letter of intent was executed to allow due diligence to move forward. More details on the development potential will be shared as it becomes available and will be presented to the HLBAC. Development of the site is consistent with, is consistent with the Girdwood South Town site, development of the site consistent with the Girdwood South Town site master plan right there. Master plan is supported. That's a clerical error, my apologies. And then the next one that they mentioned was 6-039. This is a parcel that runs adjacent to the Alyeska Highway, just past Ruane Road, all the way up until there's more housing. It's on the right-hand side as you're driving into town. And the portion next to, that is one of the parcels that when we did our feasibility analysis did come back as possibly developable because there is that road frontage. There is some slope along the road there, which would be a factor in any development along there. But that is in our work plan. as a potentially a portion of that parcel could be developable. And that is on page 21. And the intent would be to replat it into residential lots for disposal. The next parcel they mention is 6-016, which is a portion of that parcel is, you might be familiar with, it was part of the Holton Hills disposal. A different portion of that parcel is zoned for Girdwood Institutions and Parks, GIP. And so our intent is to, during the subdivision plat of the Holton Hills project, is to also plat out that GIP zoned portion so that that can be used for future institution and park uses. And so that was actually something that we added based on their comment. And that is located on page 17, at the top of page 17. Their next parcel is 6-134. This is the parcel neighboring 6-076 in the Girdwood South Town site. And we have, it says it right here, that we're aware of that there's some projects that are being discussed in the community. Nothing has formally been brought to us at this point. You know, there is a master plan for that area. The project that's being discussed does not align with that master plan. So we did add into our work plan that an update to the master plan might be something that we look into this year. 6-013 is a parcel that is on Arlberg as you're driving out to the resort. It is listed as wetlands in the watershed management plan. I think that the comment originally suggested that maybe there could be housing there. What we decided to put into the work plan, which is on page, is it page 16? Yeah, at the very bottom of page 16 is that we will conduct, I actually went down there a couple weeks ago to look at it, and of course it was still covered in snow, but just to wrap my brain about, you know, because sometimes it's easier to look at it in person than just look at this little parcel on a map and get an idea of it. But this summer we're going to, before we pay for official wetland delineation to be done or anything like that, we want to go out there and stomp around in our extra tufts and see how wet it is. You know, typically we like to do that sort of thing in August when the water table, that's the prime time for doing a delineation, because in June it's still going to be incredibly wet. But we want to get a better idea of whether the parcel, how much of the parcel is covered in wetlands. And then the next parcel they mention is 6-057F, my favorite parcel. It's the Girdwood Industrial Park. And we included that. So their comment was regarding a portion of the parcel being used by GVSA, the Girdwood Valley Service Area, and Girdwood Fire Department. And these are both things that we're aware of. And GVSA already currently permits a portion of that area that's been filled, that's being permitted right now. And as we are working on this feasibility study, we are working with the GVSA manager, Kyle Kelly, down there, as well as the permittees. And so we are hoping to present that to GBOS and HLBAC later this month. It's actually on our April agenda for this month. So, yeah.
Thank you. And I appreciate the detailed overview. And thanks for following up on that, because I know that was it seemed like some good ideas. So I appreciate the look at that. My other question, if that's okay, is Turnagain Community Council, I know has submitted comments for many years. So I don't want to get into all of them, but one kind of theme that I remember discussion over the years was the request to basically transfer some lands that are already being used as parks from HLB to Parks and Rec to formally make them parkland and I believe also dedicate them. And I know it was under John Rada, so at least 2 park directors ago, the statement was, we can't maintain what we have, so we don't support more of those at that time. So I was just checking in. Has that position changed at all? And I know you guys can't speak for Parks and Recreation, but just wondering if there's been more kind of openness to the idea of that transfer of management responsibility.
Sure. I can think of a couple parcels that we have considered for transfer to Parks and Rec. There is one in Girdwood actually that has a trail running through it. It's a long, slender parcel. So we're planning on transferring that one to Girdwood Parks and Rec. The ones here in the Anchorage proper is some of them we've considered to transfer. Something that we if there's wetlands on the parcels, sometimes it can be advantageous to keep it in HLB inventory because we can potentially use those parcels as mitigation credits, which would and put a conservation easement on them, which would still protect them for recreational use, but they would not be in Parks and Rec inventory. They would remain in Heritage Land Bank inventory. So that's one of the factors when we determine whether a parcel should be transferred or not. That being said, Parks and Recreation, we work closely with Parks and Recreation, and if there's ever a parcel that they request to have be transferred, it's kind of a that's the usual path, is they would make a request for the transfer more than us saying, hey, do you guys want this? And so if they were to request it, that would be something that would go into the work plan. It would say this parcel has been requested for transfer by Parks and Recreation.
Okay, thanks. That's very helpful.
I have a question for you on the plan.
Okay.
Page 45. And some of this is probably not you, but here you are. So page 45, looking at the differential between 2020 and 2021, there's a huge shift. So what's that shift?
So the fund balance is kind of complicated. If you look at the actual numbers here on the lists, we have revenues, expenses, and other sources. And we actually did a deep dive this year into all these numbers because this is not my strong suit. So I actually wanted to understand it. And revenue only includes everything that we get from leases and permits. Expenses are, that's all our expenses. Other sources is where if we dispose of a piece of property, that's where that money is listed. Mm-hmm. And so as you can see in the fund balance, there has been a lot of up and down over the years. Those are due to things where we purchased a property, we sold a valuable property. I believe the dip in the early 2000s was due to some loans, which we then, I think, received back probably in 2012. I can't confirm that off the top of my head, but that is something that was, that has happened over the years. And so the fund balance can sometimes, it does go up and down quite a bit.
Looking though at 2021, there's a nearly $3 million reduction in other sources. So what was that? Do you know?
In 2021.
Because that's what shows the substantial dip between 2020 and 2021 on the graph, from 7.4 to 4.8. And then there's a subsequent, even harder question. You can get back to me, but I need to know what that shift was, $3 million. So then looking at the table, 2022 and 2023, I recognize this is not a problem of your creation, but it is a problem of yours, being that we can't see what your financial position is in relationship to your fund balance. And with the trajectory of 2020 to 2021, if you were to repeat that trajectory, 2021 to 2022, 2022 to 2023, you've fallen off the bottom of the map, the chart. And so can you speak to the financial position unaudited of the organization right now? Because we're going into Q1, we're being asked to issue a budget and levy taxes based on magical thinking and unknown numbers. And so what's the part that's not here in your general appraisal or assessment?
Can I try to ask that another way?
Sure. Ms. Alto will reiterate the question.
So I'm
hopefully.
going to try to ask it another way. Based on what you have in your work plan, one, do you have enough money and what kind of financial position do you think it puts you in? Right? I think that's what we're trying to do.
That second part.
Yeah. The reason we see this is, one, we want to know your financial position. And two, do you have the financial position you need in order to carry out the work plan? Or does the work plan then become some kind of unfunded mandate? Right? And so you have to have some kind of idea what financial position you're in, or you can't put projects forward, regardless if you have audited financials.
And so I think it's not really fair to put you on the spot for this level of detail. I would like, before we get to vote on this matter, that you have a sense, I bet they have most of it done. You have numbers for 2022. We might have to guess on 2023, but it's very, very difficult to approve the plan, just like it's very, very difficult to approve the budget without knowing our financial position. And so I need you to fill in the blanks. Okay. Yeah, I don't want to force you to try to guess, because that's a terrible position that we're in, and I don't want to impute that to you. So, other questions? Karen?
I noticed the Clithrow building on the list of actions coming up. And are they closing the operations out there by Warren's up? That's the land we're talking about, right? And is there a plan for what might possibly go there?
Yeah, they've leased that building for quite some time, I think since the 80s. And as of this month, they're vacating and moving to a new facility, I think in Midtown. And so they are still in the process of moving out, but they are vacating that. And we do not have any plans as of right now for what will happen to that property. It's something that we are going to look into. It will start with a agency review most likely to see if there's a municipal need, which is what we do with all of our properties. If there's municipal need for the property, and then from that point, we can determine if there's any interest from the public.
I don't know if this is in the Heritage Land Bank wheelhouse, but the Moose Loop, we're really promoting it and the biking of that trail. And there's really nothing to stop at and have a snack or ice cream cone or drink a beer. And, some of the most memorable trails I'm on, you come by and there's little tables you could sit. So it'd be really neat to have something like that along the coastal trail. Maybe even if it ended up being food trucks out there, I don't know.
I don't know if that's the Heritage Land Bank's function. I think that's more of Parks and Rec function, but it's yeah, certainly an interesting and valuable suggestion. So, but I don't know that Heritage Land Bank operates anything of that nature. Do you?
We typically don't, but I do appreciate the feedback, and it's something that we can talk to Parks and Rec about or see who might, be a good fit for that.
Anyone else? Okay, then this one was shorter and easier than you thought. Look forward to maybe one or two amendments coming from me, and others might have other ideas.
Can I ask a question?
Go ahead. Yeah.
I was working with Member Solt on something around Girdwood. Have you all talked and worked through whatever it is and it's reflected in here? He's not here today. And it was just in the back of my mind. That's something that I stepped away from, but I wanted to help see come to fruition.
So that rundown that I gave at the beginning of the Q&A, that was the comment that he submitted. It was originally from Crystal Hoek, so we listed it as from Crystal Hoek through Randy, because typically assembly members don't give comments on the plan at that point. And since he forwarded a message from Crystal, we felt it was more appropriate to list her name there as well. And then as part of that, we actually invited him over to the Permit Center, and we had a meeting with him and Assemblymember Johnson, and we've had an open dialogue about Girdwood, which we invite anybody to, come and talk about their area, town, and any projects you're interested in.
Thank you. I appreciate that update. Having dipped into Holton Hills and been involved, I just wanted to make sure the follow along got done. Thank you.
All right. Anyone else? We haven't seen none. We'll go ahead and be adjourned until our next meeting, which starts in about half an hour. So thank you, everybody.